What's up, everyone? Hey, welcome back to WITI. We are doing simulation interviews here, and we are talking to John Bates now. What's up?
How you doing?
Thanks for
Glad
coming
to be
on
here.
the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure, and you're welcome.
Thank you very much. And you are the founder of Executive Speaking Success, 12 and a half years now.
You know, yes, I've been doing this for maybe even a lot longer than that, but it was for fun and beer money. And when I really started this company, like when I got the LLC filed and went whole hog on it, was about 6 years ago. So, you know, kind of depends on what we're talking about in terms of like how long I've been doing this as a company. 6 years, 12 years is committedly, maybe even a little bit more. And so it's been a fun ride.
And it was great getting to know you for the brief period that we did just earlier. And even just now you sat down. Maybe we should start with what we just mentioned when we sat down, which is how cool is it to be around so many powerful women?
It's really cool. And you know, like I just mentioned, I think that WITI is a really good example. If you have any question about whether we still undervalue women, just come to this conference and look at the just powerhouse women that are walking around, and here we are. You know, if these were all men, this conference would cost way more, be way harder to get into, you know. So it's one of the reasons I'm, excited to be here. It's just such an amazing event, you know.
I love all of the conversations with women that are thinking about society in a way that is like, how do we maximize the potential of women to be in a place of power? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's get there.
Yeah, you know, if you look at the science around just about anything, I mean, pretty much anything, when women are doing better, everything's doing better.
Yeah.
You know, and you go look, and in a place where women are
happy
doing,
wife, happy life.
That's right. Even a marriage, right? Yeah. And I mean, if you go look at it, where women are doing better, the environment's doing better. Where women are doing better, animals are doing better. Where women are doing better, you know, fairness is doing better. Where women are doing better, men are doing better. You know what I mean? There's just, I'm really excited and happy to be able to be here and potentially offer something that can forward that action. You know, because I definitely think we need women in places of power. We need women's voices. I think everybody's got something to offer, and I think women have something particularly useful and critical, especially for us where we are today.
Yeah. There's been a lot of, let's stay on this topic for a bit.
Sure.
And then we'll get to more about what you built. So today it seems as though we live in the rocket era and the cell phone era and the computers and the biotechnology and all these things that are very like logical and then we're kind of putting to the side the sociology, the psychology, the feeling, the emotion, the heart to heart. And like men aren't very vulnerable, especially not in public and on television.
Well, yeah,
men
I mean,
don't
we get
cry.
Trained not to do that, right?
Yeah.
You know, I made a conscious effort years ago to stop being that way.
Yeah.
And I made a conscious, scary, difficult to follow through on all the time promise to myself that I would share my feelings, that I would let my feelings up, I would experience my feelings and not try to hide them from the people around me. And it's, you know, it's still sometimes hard to do that, and the difference that it makes is pretty palpable. I mean, people, you know, stuff happens that wouldn't happen if I wasn't willing to take the risk that feels like to do that. And I think whenever anyone does that, it opens it up for everyone to do that. No, it's one of those things, you know, and leadership is one of the things I think about a lot. And it's one of the things
like monkey see, monkey do a little bit.
Very much like that. And, you know, and here's the critical component about it for leadership, I think, is it's easy to be a leader at the buffet table. Follow me, I'll go first. Okay, I'm a leader.
This
right?
analogy. Yeah, let's hear it. Keep going. Yeah.
So that's great, and that's leadership, but that's not when leadership makes a difference. Like being a leader to the buffet table, not really making a difference.
But being a leader on the dance floor when nobody is dancing.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Being a leader when it comes to being vulnerable, showing your emotion, expressing your emotion. And something else I think is really important along those lines is the most important lessons that we have to share are the lessons we learned in the hardest, most embarrassing, worst, most horrible times of our lives. But nobody ever wants to talk about that. No one wants to go first in that conversation. Yeah. But if somebody goes first, everybody wants to go second or third or fourth, or we'll shut the bar down with that, So you could go first at the buffet table, but that doesn't make a difference. But if you want to be a leader that makes a difference, you could go first in that conversation and free up the space, open up the space for other people to share their stories and what they learned out of those horrible moments. That's useful,
Gosh, I love this analogy. Oh, Alfredo, we gotta write this one down and keep it. Yeah,
it makes
being
me
a
laugh.
leader at the buffet versus being a leader on an empty dance floor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's such a good one. Oh,
okay. And it's it's when no one else wants to go first, but it's worthwhile for someone to do it. That's when being a leader makes a difference. You go first and you open it up for everybody. And all of a sudden the dance floor is crowded. Nobody even remembers you went first.
Yeah.
But you do.
Yep.
You did.
Yep.
And now everybody's dancing.
Everyone's dancing.
So
okay, so now we have sometimes culture does things to us, especially to kids and to women and minorities, that kind of pushes them into states where it's more difficult for them to step forward and be
absolutely.
a leader.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this is powerful. This is why I love being here, because it's very counterculture to be here right now. It's at the edge of what's going on in the world in that sense. Okay, so let's unpack John. Let's unpack you. Okay. So when we were talking earlier about this, I really felt goosebumps when you said that. When you were talking about your experience with your first company. Yeah. Yeah, and the first venture funded $80 million. Venture funded and .com pop.
Yeah.
And then you went through, tell us what you went through and how that made who you are today.
Yeah, okay. So I've been on the internet since 1987, had an email address, started working at UCLA on the first ever Macintosh computer lab connected to the internet anywhere in the world. And then in 1994, I went to a place called Virtual Vegas, and I was an early stage employee there, and then did a number of other things. And then in 1997, 98, there were a couple of other guys that came to me, and we started this thing called bigwords.com. And
what did you guys do?
We sold textbooks over the internet, cheaper than the bookstore, delivered to your door. Yeah. And I'm telling you, this was in the day when you could not go buy widgets and parts for your website. You had to hand code everything, and it was all from the ground up, and nobody was ready for shipping books quickly. And I mean, it was an amazing experience. And we did a lot of things right. We were not one of those companies that spent it all on a Super Bowl ad and then couldn't fulfill our orders or something. But at the end of the day, our investors said we were not going to be profitable fast enough. And, we had the thought at the time, and there's still some truth to this, I think, but the thought at the time was you've got to grow market share. As long as you're growing and growing market share, we can find more funding for you. So man, we just went at it. We were not as worried about being profitable because that wasn't the game yet. We knew that would come, but that wasn't the game yet. And then the market turned, and all of a sudden they couldn't get money for us anymore. And everything, just dried up, and we had missed our possible opportunity to sell to Amazon because we wanted to go public ourselves, wouldn't make that mistake again. And so on October 20th of 2000, our investors, after putting $80 million into this company, came and said, you know what, we're pulling the plug. You're not going to be profitable fast enough. We had done a ton of things right, but we were not going to be profitable fast enough. And out we went on our butts, you know. Went across the street from South Park in San Francisco to the 21st Amendment and got drunk and cried, you know.
Wow.
And then I had gone into this, and what I didn't realize until a little bit later was I had this context of I want to succeed, me.
Yeah.
Right. And of course I want to take everybody with me, but it's about me and I want to succeed. And I was approaching everything like opportunity only knocks once. This is my, I'm putting my soul on the line. This is going to happen so that was motivating in a lot of ways, but what do you do when your context is opportunity only knocks once and they just pulled the plug on your company, Well, I didn't know what to do. So I was angry, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, I was scared, I was hurt. I mean, I was just every unpleasant emotion you can name. And super freaking anxious, because it did kind of seem like the whole world was just imploding when I was living in San Francisco at the time, and so it was the .com center and everything was just going and so it was a really tough time. And a few months after that I had a bout with this thing called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which starts out with little ulcerations in your mucous membrane, and I mean all your mucous membrane, like my eyelids and everything was like ulcers. Whoa. And weeping ulcers, and then dots on your skin, and then the end game is the dots connect, your skin sloughs off, you go blind and die in the burn unit. Not a pretty thing. And it can be caused by a lot of things. I mean, it's a syndrome, so they don't really know. It means we don't know. Syndrome equals we don't know. So it seems like mine is particularly triggered by lack of sleep and stress. So what was I doing? I had just spent several years not sleeping at all, and practically. And now I was super ultra stressed on top of it. And so I just had this. And all of a sudden I ended up in the emergency room, and I'm sitting on this bed, and doctors are coming from all over the Bay Area to see me because this is such a rare thing. They wanted to they're looking at my mouth and looking at the dots on my skin. And the scary thing was the doctors that were in charge of taking care of me were looking at me like they didn't know if I was going to make it. Like you can see it, in their eyes. And I was like, damn, and so I sat there and really I was in the hospital for probably 18 or 24 hours, more, whatever, awake and freaked out the whole time. And I spent that whole time kind of thinking, am I going to make it or not? So I was really confronting that I might not make it. And my life just looked really small to me. I looked back over my life and what I'd done, and if this was it, would I be okay with that? And I was not okay with that because it was selfish, it was small. And I just thought, wow, what a petty life you just lived, And so I promised myself that if I got out of that hotel room, we're sitting in a hotel room, if I got out of that hospital room and I was alive, I was going to do things differently. And I decided, all I want is to make a difference. I just want to know that whatever I did made a difference. If I'm the CEO, if I'm the bottle washer, if I'm carrying water, if I'm chopping wood, I don't care. I want to do what I'm doing well, and I want to make a difference. And I got to walk out of the hospital, and I was not okay for a long time. And I was so happy to be alive, and I really started approaching everything differently. And the bottom line for me was I just wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to be able to look back on my life and go, okay, I gave it my all, as opposed to I made it all about me, So
yeah. Whoa. So first of all, the culture's pressure on huge. This is the little sleep, the door's only open for a moment, gotta seize the opportunity. The constant push for
Yeah.
like success and fame and money and
Oh,
and
dude.
all that stuff, and then the just this story of how one can just go up, and then down to a point of like doctors coming from around the bay to see something that's so rare, and then just the realization being that no matter what I do with my life and my time, I need to make a difference. I want to be part of the tribe that's recognized. I want to recognize others. I want to be recognized.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, you know, and for me, it was a very internal thing, and I think in kind of a good way. I just wanted to know I had done my best to make a difference, and if I get recognized, great, and if I don't get recognized, I don't care. I pick up trash when people aren't watching, and I made a commitment a long time ago to leave every bathroom I go into a little bit better than when I walked in.
Great one. One of my favorite ways to do that is to just push the paper towels down.
I do that. I'll step in there and stomp them to the bottom, right? And so I've spent 15 years, and I can honestly tell you that except for a few times when the bathroom was already so pristine, there was just nothing I could figure out to do, which is not that often. Like it's very, very, very rare.
Yeah.
Every bathroom I've gone into has ended up a little bit better somehow or another. And
that's a really good motto. Yeah, making that little difference almost everywhere you go.
I mean, and I love the bathroom too, right?
Because it's like on the street is equal in like just simplicity.
Yeah,
just walking by someone, just hey,
giving them a smile, right? Smile. Yeah, well, yeah, totally.
It just changes them as well. They smile back.
Yeah,
so much different. Yeah.
And so that. I mean, and the funny thing is, because probably there's some people listening who have businesses and care about that too, and I certainly do. I mean, I love what Ron Finley said in his TED Talk. He's a gangster gardener, and he said, the funny thing about sustainability is you have to sustain it, which, you got to make money or your business isn't sustainable.
Yeah, Tamara was just on the show, and she said a passion to profit.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Yeah. Whole other topic on some level, but
it's kind of some stuff you teach as well.
Well, yeah. And one of the things that I realized fairly recently is I look back over my life, and there was a period of my life, the majority of my adult life, I was an entrepreneur trying to make money. And of course, I wanted to be nice to people and help and things like that. But I was interested in making money. That's what you do as an entrepreneur. You find an idea that's going to make money. Well, let's make money. And after that experience and a little bit more soul searching and some other, stuff, I finally, when I went into this full time 6 years ago and started this company, as a full-time gig, and I stopped doing anything else. It was scary, scary, scary.
Yeah.
I had always been 50 grand in debt and had millions of dollars worth of useless stock. When I started this company, in the face of everyone telling me, you don't want to do that. Like, you're not going to make any money at that. There's no money in that. Like, they're a dime a dozen. Don't do that. So I cried about it for a while, and then I went, wait a minute. Like, I have looked at my life. I think this is what I have to offer of value. I'm going to do it anyway. Because I'd been doing it, like I said, for fun and beer money, and I saw the difference that it made. So I said, I can make a difference here, so forget if I make money, who cares? I'm just going to do this and see what happens. First year and a half, I went even further in debt. End of year 2, started to turn around. Third year, I made more than I've ever made in my whole life. Fourth year, doubled that plus. Fifth year, tripled that plus. Sixth year, kind of broke even. This year, I say that I'm going to blow that all out of the water. And the funny thing is, when I was focused on money, I had debt. And when I switched the focus to providing value, even in the face of not being sure it would make money, but for sure it provided value, all of a sudden I'm making money. Oh, and by the way, like 6 years, that's not all of a sudden, right? I like to tell people doing what you love is important because it's easy to be an overnight success if you do something for 10 years.
We were just talking about it just an hour ago when we were walking, is that everybody wants to succeed, but people want overnight success, and that doesn't happen. It takes 6 years of time, and like you said, you shifted your mentality to providing value.
Yes.
We were also talking about that earlier today, that when you have a conversation with someone, shift the focus to not what you can get, but what you can give.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you will be shocked at what happens.
Yeah.
People want to start talking to you. People want to start doing business with you. People want to be a friend because they know that what you're doing is you're helping them first.
Yeah.
And then they see that and they're like, I want to help you too.
Yeah. It's one of the things I talk about in my trainings because I like to show people the neurobiological underpinnings of communication. I say communicating with human beings is not logical, it's biological. And when you understand the biology, you can make it logical again.
That's good, I like that one.
But people who go in thinking logic's going to win by itself are always disappointed and never as effective as they could be.
That's so good. Oh, that just resonates so
Here's
well.
a funny one. I'm very proud of this. Logic is necessary, but it's not sufficient.
Yeah.
You got to have that logic, but if that's all you have, somebody else with logic and an emotional connection is going to totally leave you beat,
Truth.
And,
Truth. Yes.
So...
you got to have both the polymath, the wide range of knowledge and logic and execution, but also the wide range of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You tap into any of those skills, any of these skills, and switch between them, add them together. That's just, you're going to...
Yeah. I mean, I always ask people, who would be more successful? You exactly as you are right now with all the skills you've got and a poor communicator, or you exactly as you are right now with all the skills you've got and a great communicator?
Yeah.
Hello.
So then would you say then the bulk of what you're doing is teaching people how to become exceptional communicators?
I would say so. Yeah, well, here's my why. My why is to bring out what's awesome inside every person so it can live in the world and make a real difference. And I do that by doing, one-on-one coaching. I do large group trainings. I do small group trainings. And it's all based in human evolutionary biology. And I call it leadership communication because I think leadership is a function of communication. And once people understand the fundamental biology that underpins human communication, it's all of a sudden it frees people up. They get the principles and then they can apply them to their own style and be far more effective in all forms of communication. I get brought in a lot to work on people because they want to have this year's customer summit. They want all their top executives to give TED-like talks. So I go in and work with them on that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that's the end result. But to get to that, there's all these things that we work on and that I train people in that also make them, yes, very good on-stage communicators, but in also really good communicators one-on-one and in small groups and large groups, and understanding what it is in your communication that's actually going to move people to take action and to remember you and to feel loyal to you and to trust you and care about you. It's what everybody wants, but people never do we get shown how to do that. Everybody still thinks it's a PowerPoint with a whole bunch of bullet points that you kind of talk over and don't read the bullet points. And that's about as much training as anybody ever gets.
It's a lot of experiential learning, a lot of falling on your face over and over again. And then all of a sudden, like you said, there's this difference in some of my friends and I, we call it N, just the number of people that are in the group at a time.
Yeah.
So if it's just N2, this is just two people talking to each other, then your interpersonal skills you have almost a different toolkit. You're accessing different tools on your toolkit than when you're in a group of 4, maybe you're in a group of 6. And a really good thing to do is know how to be a good question asker.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
You're
and then you can show
right.
people that you care by asking them good questions.
Yeah.
And then actively listening.
That's
give
right.
those 2 ears over.
Yeah.
There's one
Yeah,
mouth,
yeah.
there's two ears.
That's right.
Give those
That's
two
for a
ears
reason,
over.
yeah.
And then paraphrase what they said.
Yeah.
Show them that you listen.
Yeah.
And then ask them another good question. And then eventually they'll be like, hey, my turn to ask you questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you know that listening part is super important. One of the things that I like to point out to people when I'm doing my large group training, let's say, I'll have a slide where I talk about this and I'll say, okay, so what's going on more in this room right now? There's like, 400 people and me. And I say, what's going on more in here, talking or listening? People think about it for a second and they're like, oh, listening. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Way more listening than talking right now. And I think this has actually been misnamed because people call what I'm doing right now a talk. It's not a talk. It's a listen.
Ah, that's a good point.
I've done this a lot when people aren't listening, and it's just not as good.
No, it sucks,
The power is not in me talking. The power is in you listening, and I honor that as a speaker. I acknowledge that. If I don't get that, I will never be as effective or as good as I could be. And I think it's really, really important to remember the power is not in the talking. The power is in the listening.
And there's this kind of, I wonder, the logical mind's trying to put percentages on it and stuff. But like as an example, it's as like an abstract example. It's also both in this listener to be really good at listening, as it is in the storyteller, the person that is doing the talking, to make it fun and engaging and relatable. Yeah, both at the same time.
Yeah, but there's a thing that I selfishly, because I could name it, I named it the Bates equation. And
let's hear about this.
It goes like this: 1 times 20 times 3,000.
Okay.
That's me speaking for 20 minutes to 3,000 people.
Okay.
That's 60,000 minutes of human life that I use up in one 20-minute talk to 3,000 people. Let's divide by 60, 1,000 hours. I'm only talking for 20 minutes.
Ooh.
But with 3,000 people in the audience, I just burned 1,000 hours of human life. So I better practice. I better be willing to put in the time it's going to take to make that worth their while.
I gotta give you a high five for that one.
Yeah, all right, okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's a really good one. Because time's the most valuable commodity.
It's the only thing, yeah,
it's
really.
the only thing.
Yeah.
You get 30,000 days when you're born, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then with like you said, you're giving 20 minutes, but you're taking 1,000 hours of
human life.
Human
That's
life.
right. That's
Whoa,
right.
that's so interesting.
Pretty good,
to put
huh?
it that way. Yeah.
So now here's what that makes possible. Practicing, right? Like you could actually practice if you thought of it that way. The other way I like to do it is add up everybody's salary in the room. I'm doing a day-long training for a big company, and they've flown in all their top executives. What would those guys charge me for a day of their time?
Oh, yeah.
All their flights, all their hotels, all their meals, right? Paying me, flying me in, putting me up. Like, I don't think I could afford that. But somebody's paying for that. Yeah. And if I'm not worth that, then I'm not going to get invited back very much.
Yep.
So lots of ways to run that. But
we could put monetary value on
right
the
there,
1,000
if you want.
hours.
Yeah.
If everyone's getting paid about $30 an hour, then
Yeah,
that's $30,000.
Yeah, and now let's knock it up to some top executives at global companies. They're making more like $300 an hour or more.
$300,000 of time in 20
One
minutes.
20-minute talk.
Yeah. It's interesting. I really like that. Because I think it also puts into perspective it's like time entering into reality in a different way than normal is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we do that too. I'm currently in the process of authoring a book talking about the importance of time and the importance of when you're so young and you're able to cram in this world around you. But there's certain things that you can cram in and take in that are of a higher value.
Yes.
And it's difficult to parse
like it
reality.
all costs 10 minutes, but this 10 minutes is going to pay back much better than that 10 minutes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Listen, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those things. Some point along the road, you see that, and the sooner you see it, the more valuable and worthwhile everything you end up doing after that is, right?
Amen, brother. I'm so happy we got here.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So the Bates equation's happening. Like you're teaching them that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're
I
like
mean, a lot because look, I mean, these folks are busy. Like they are super, super busy.
Yeah.
And it's hard for them. I mean, think how hard it is for me, right? And I'm not a Fortune 50, Fortune 20, top 20 executive. It's hard for me to put time in my calendar to practice a talk because like I could just wing it, I'm pretty good at that. But it's never going to be as good as it could be if I do it that way. So how do I justify the time it's going to take me to practice to get this as good as it could be? Oh, let's run the Bates equation, right? Because if I'm just giving a 20-minute talk, well, that doesn't seem like much to prep for. But if I'm burning up $300,000 of the company's money with a 20-minute talk to 3,000 employees that all make $300 or whatever an hour, well, now I could justify some prep time for that. So that's one of the biggest things for me of the Bates equation. And, it makes me think of Steve Jobs. I have a friend who worked with him on all those talks. After they created the talk, after it was all like finalized what he was going to say, he committed to 1 hour of practice for every minute that he was going to be on stage. 45-minute talk, 45 hours of practice. And, people get out of doing that by saying, oh, he's a natural. Well, guess what? You could be pretty much of a natural too if you practice that much. Are you kidding me? That's how we get out of practice. Oh, he's a natural. No, you just don't want to practice. I don't want to practice.
Okay, so I kind of want to come back to what we were discussing just a little bit to hear your thoughts about this. We talk a lot about maximizing human potential and maximizing the potential of children in this world. There's a lot of exponential technology that's going on, a lot of automation, AI that's happening, robotics. So a question that we would like to ask you is then, how do we figure out what is good for kids to invest their time into learning?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I have a 2-year-old son, I'm like, what
do I do?
What do I do? Yeah. What do I encourage him in? What's his life going to be like?
How do you teach robot-proof skills?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and can I just jump even further than that for a second? Mm-hmm. How, and this might be a question that would be worth answering anyway, but if you project it out far enough, and it might not even be all that far, all of a sudden artificial intelligence and robotics and all that stuff is doing everything pretty much. There's a few positions left, but most people do not have to work. But we get all of our value and all of our self-worth and just our entire picture of ourselves through the work we do, or that we don't work and we're unemployed and we're, but how do we give people something fulfilling and challenging that's not work when they don't have to work anymore? Like, how are we going to work this, And if everybody's got universal basic income, how do we make people's lives fulfilling, and how do we get them to value that universal basic income and have a fulfilling life versus just sitting around and undervaluing the money that they get and the stuff they're doing? That could be if we could answer that question for that distant future, there might be some things we could do in our current present that would also alleviate a lot of this frustration and suffering that we see around us.
So we'll get to some more communication stuff, and we'll get there. What are your thoughts about wealth inequality posing an existential risk to a significant portion of society? So especially low socioeconomic status and middle socioeconomic status.
Well, I just noticed that any time in history that I know of where enough people felt like they didn't have any of the pie, they ruined the pie. Mm-hmm. Right? So I just think that if really, really ridiculously upper wealth type people are actually thinking at all and they're being selfish, they would not hoard stuff. They would put the wealth back out so it could circulate, so the people at the bottom felt like they had some piece of the pie. Because I'll tell you what, you got a teeny tiny slice of pie, you're going to work to grow that pie. You have no slice, you just want to destroy the pie. That's what I think.
And then sometimes there are very advanced artificial intelligent robots with guns that are protecting the pie. And then you're like, now what?
Yeah.
And then it's like, now you finally got to a point where it's not about 1,000-person army protecting the castle. It's now fleets of drones and bots on legs that are doing it.
And you know what, and you're right, and there's a dystopian future awaiting us if we go down that path. I just wonder, what about a fulfilling life? It took me too long to start asking myself what's fulfilling versus what's going to make money. But when I did, my life got way more fulfilling and I made more money. And I look at the people that are willing to trash the environment for a profit, and I wonder, what world do they want to live in and they want their kids to live in? If the environment is thrashed and you're a billionaire, is that worth it? I don't think it would be for me, And so I think that we are asking ourselves a lot of the wrong questions, and that has us chasing after a lot of of just not as fulfilling solutions.
I think women's perspective will actually help us
hugely
get to the better questions and the better, maybe even a better distribution of the pie. And growing the pie in a more effective way. I think it might.
I'm pretty sure
that it will.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, and you could go as far as our biology. You don't have to go very far.
That was a good one. It's not logical, it's biological.
Well, and men are E growth. Men are E, like exponential, like sperm, thousands of them. Women don't have that luxury. They're K growth, mammal growth. We're like bacteria when it comes to that, and they're like mammals. K growth, invest big in one thing. There's a finite number of eggs that they're ever gonna have available, and when they get pregnant, it's a 9-month commitment just to get that thing into the world. So I just think that the biology supports their point of view being more long-term and more sustainable, and we both have a part to play, but I think we've been missing their part too much, and we could use a lot more of that.
Yeah. And the communication side of between men and women, between politicians, between parents and kids, between kids and the teachers and the community, all of these different aspects of communication. So with your specific focus, is it more so on the executive side of things? Is it, and how does it, go ahead and expand upon that for us.
So, I think that I'm sneaking in under the radar to just have a human perspective, but it does, I do get brought in a lot for executive presence, better speaking skills, better connection skills, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And all of that
With
stuff
some humanity on the side.
Yeah. Well, all of that stuff is super important in business. And it just also happens to be super important in life. And one of the things that I definitely believe is that there's just no way that people can be as effective as they want to be at work if they don't have their life handled too. And whatever it is they're doing that doesn't work, I'm a big fan of the saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if something's not working, it's not just not working at home. It's not working everywhere. And if something's not working at work, well, it's not working at home either, So there's this, one of the reasons people told me when I wanted to start this that it was never going to make me any money is because they're like, speaker coach. Are you kidding? Speaker coach? So, I don't even call myself a speaker coach anymore because it just draws up too many bad images for people. But the thing is, it never for me was about things like, well, this is a closed position and this is an open position. So you should go like this and open up, I'm like, stand like this, don't stand like that. That's not what I do. What I realized early on was that all those experiences people have had throughout their lives, those are the things that are driving their issues with communication. So one example, got brought in to work with this guy who was really great guy, doing a great job, but just not such a great presenter when it came time to present to the board and stuff. So I went in, I worked with him on the content. I love getting in early and doing that stuff. And then once we had it, so he was saying what he wanted to say, he started delivering it for me, and I had him picture the board and everything. And all of a sudden he got all tense and awkward and weird and whatever. I was like, okay, what's going on for you here now? I noticed that everything was cool till we said go, and then all of a sudden something changed. What does this remind you of? What's coming up for you? He goes, oh my gosh. It's like when I was a little kid and I was at a new school again. Because my dad had a job that we had to move every couple of years. So almost every year I was the new kid at school again. And when I get in front of the board, that's what comes up for me. I feel like I'm the new kid, and are they gonna like me? And will it, dude, from, early high school, maybe even junior high or earlier.
Still wired up there.
Still wired up there, right? And the minute that he got that, and we saw that, and we uncovered it, bingo, gone.
Yeah, just needed to uncover
Just
it.
need to uncover it.
Yeah.
The minute you see those things, they don't have you anymore. You now have them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the, that kind of work is the focus. I want to go after the deep root issues.
Yep.
I want to go after the key principles to remember and use. I don't want to do surface bandages and patch jobs. I want to work it from the depths so that it is
roots.
Done, you know.
That's a really good example. Those types of examples are the ones I think that really resonate with people, because a lot of what goes on is patterns from our childhood. And trauma from our childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't, sometimes, like you said, it's hidden from sight until it's really uncovered, and a lot of it requires just space and vulnerability and just active listening from other people, and just coaching at the right moments, and then the person being willing to take it and being and being like, whoa, like that's, and then going forth and being confident and going through it and being like, I actually can do this. And dang, that's a really good example. There's so many examples like that from childhood. Because by the time we become older, once we get, especially towards the end of our lives, we only remember things like one thing per year, significant thing per year. So, I mean, it's just, how do you even remember what happened in your childhood and in your family, your community, with your friends that led you to who you became? That's a lot of memory.
Oh, it is. And it's, and there's just such an accretion of decisions we make about ourselves and then forget we made. You know, like one of the things that was just driving my life is this time when I was a little kid and I was looking through Time and Newsweek and stuff, and there was a big famine in Ethiopia, and I was about 11 or 12 at the time. Oh my God, I mean, I was in just this bleak depression for months. And I think the decision I made was something like, the world is screwed and it's just getting worse. And there's just nothing I can do about it, because it just seems so much bigger than me, that, you know, and so huge and overwhelming. Okay, and then I forgot. I did that. But here I am at 38, 40, living like a 19-year-old rock star, you know, no investment in the future at all about like pleasure in the moment. That's not who I wanted to be. But that decision of an 11-year-old that the world is screwed up and it's just getting worse, if I really thought that, that's exactly how I would act. I would have a great time tonight. Who cares what's on the credit card? You know, forget any long-term investment because the world's just going down. But that's not what I really thought. That's not what I, the grown-up John Bates, wanted to be coming from. But I had to identify that I had made that choice so long ago so that I could then just go, oh, okay, I get it, and I don't actually believe that. I want to have, you know, I'm ready to make long-term investments, and I want to come from this like we could make a difference in this place, and we're going to make it better. And, you know, so now I have a wife and a child, and, you know, that's a heavy-duty investment in the future, especially for a guy who was just, that was allergic, you know, I was allergic to that, you know, but uncovering that stuff, you know, and that stuff's all over, and it has a huge impact on people's leadership, has a huge impact on people's communication, has a huge impact on their relationships, their life, you know.
We seem to be coming back a lot to communication, and also to your example, molding a child's mind into this complex world now. Now you've taken that on.
Oh man.
And that's a whole new field of education for an adult, too.
Yeah, they don't come with an instruction manual.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I would love to hear maybe another example of a time that you had a client that you were working with that was like an aha moment from, like the example about public speaking. Was the same thing for going to a new school every couple of years.
Can I give you this is one that's similar along those lines, but this is one of the big insights that I've had recently.
Sweet.
So I've been doing this work for a long time, and I just recently had what for me was a very valuable, really big insight. I was working with a client that, you know, it's a big Fortune top 10 company, and I'm not supposed to say their name, but you know, they're a gigantic manufacturing company that makes very difficult stuff to make that we all, you know, all of us who travel use their stuff a lot. And so they came to me and they said, John, we want to do this big summit. We haven't done one for a while. We're going to bring in all of our top customers. We want them to talk to us. We want to know what they want. We want to have a dialogue. And we want all of our top executives in the company, everybody who runs a division, is going to give a 10 to 12 minute talk. And we want it to be like TED, you know, TED-like talk. And so I said, okay, well, here's what we got to do. And they went with my program. So what that meant is, and you know, one thing I love about the work I do is I get to work with people like that. And they have been picked and chosen and worked their way up. So by the time I get to work with somebody who's a top executive at a company like this, they're really smart. Like, it's not like a bunch of jerks or dum-dums get through.
Totally.
So that's pretty cool. And they were all, because of this manufacturing, very scientific stuff, they were all very logical, you know? And so first of all, one of because they went with the program the way I said we should do it, and I think it was important they did this. They all worked with me for almost 6 months, 5.5 months. We worked on their talk, and it wasn't their communications team. Without them, they worked on the talk with me, and their communications team helped them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like they just threw it over the wall to their communications team. That never works, by the way. So they all worked with me. That's a lot of time and effort on their part.
6 months ahead of time.
6 months ahead of time. We met every month, talked in between a couple of times. They had a lot of work to do. And that was for a 10 to 12 minute talk, right? So they put in the effort. So huge kudos to them. And then I noticed that in settings like that, people always want to establish their credibility. John, I need to establish my credibility. I'm new in this position, and I want to establish my credibility. Well, I read a study a long time ago that said if you've got letters after your name, like PhD or CPA or whatever, your credibility is already assumed. And I got to believe that if you have a card with this company's name on it that says you're a VP, come on, like your credibility is assumed. You're on stage, for heaven's sake. We're not going to build your credibility. That would actually tarnish your credibility.
You had to continue building it.
Yeah.
It's almost as though you build, you validate that credibility by saying very interesting things, novel things that haven't been heard.
Yeah, you don't have to get up there and tell them about all this stuff, right? Like trot out the degrees or whatever. That's not. So it was a little bit of a struggle. I had to arm wrestle some of them, but I got everybody to do what I call some version of their superhero origin story. Where did you come from? How did you end up in this job? What was the path, and what do you care about that makes it so you'd want to be here? Because you could have been a lot of places, but you're here, right? Every choice you made led you here. Why? And so everybody in one way or another started their talk and wove that story through their talk, and versus getting up and establishing their credibility. And at the end of the whole thing, long story short, the woman I worked with said it was the best event of her 25 plus year career at this company doing these big events. And I was a big part of the reason that it was. So that's a huge compliment, and I'm stoked about that, but it scared the daylights out of me because I was like, okay, how does this keep happening? I have to articulate what we did here. I got to get this clear for myself so I can say it clearly what we did. So I thought about the whole event. I thought about what they told me. The people ran to the breakout sessions instead of running away from the breakout sessions to the coffee. The people talked to them. They told them. They were very open. They shared all kinds of stuff. So they just got everything they wanted out of this event. Sorry. And so they got everything they wanted. It went really well. People were super open and receptive. And why did that happen? And I think a big reason for why that happened, after I played it all through my mind, I played all the speeches through again, and I thought about it, and here's what dawned on me. Instead of getting up and establishing their credibility, which would have just tarnished their already existing credibility anyway, they got up and they all shared a very carefully crafted, beautifully told little bit of story about themselves that gave the audience an insight into what made them tick and who they were.
What makes them tick and who they were.
It's like, and
we have a shirt that says that, by the way. What makes you tick?
Yeah, there you go, right? Yeah. It's a very interesting question. People want to know that. And people were like, look, I don't want to talk about myself. And I'm like, this is not about yourself. You're telling us this story to open something up for us. It's actually very generous of you to tell this story. It's not, right?
So you're talking about your values and morals and ethics and these things and philosophies that then get us to think in new ways and create, it's like a creative process.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think what happened is rather than get up and establish their credibility, person after person on this whole executive team, every single one of them got up and established what I now call their emotional credibility. And I actually trademarked that. I have the website. It's going to be the title of my next book. But that, I believe, is the key to that kind of a thing, is to get up, share something meaningful with us, and establish your emotional credibility. And then everything else you say will land for us in a very different, much more beneficial, positive, influential, persuasive way.
Yeah, I remember the story about Musk almost running out of money on before his fourth rocket. It was the last attempt.
Yeah.
And then he succeeded, and he was, I almost remember some sort of like very emotional, vulnerable state of that communicating in that message.
Yes.
And that further locked people in to
That's
him
right.
and believing
That's
in
right.
him. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely right. And people are like, oh, I don't want to cry. I don't want them to see me emotional. It's like, okay, well, then you're robbing them of some of the most important stuff you could be giving them, you know?
That thought is hard to get across to men.
That's for sure. Oh, no, that's absolutely who I was picturing as I said that. It's like, guess what, guys? Yeah.
Guess what, guys? I'm here to tell you that being vulnerable and telling us, building emotional credibility. Yeah, that's really
well.
cool.
And you know, I have a friend who's a dear friend named Joshua Mance, and he just wrote a book called The Beauty of a Darker Soul.
Yeah.
And he was. Have you heard of that?
We're familiar with Darker Souls.
There you go. Good. Well, so and he was in the military, and long story short, a sniper shot the guy that was right by him, killed that guy, severed his femoral artery, and he flatlined for 15 minutes. He was dead for 15 minutes. And they didn't let him go, and they brought him back, and he had no brain damage. He was okay. I mean, it's an absolute miracle. And he is now very, very, very involved with, rehabbing people from combat arenas and PTSD and dealing with the moral injury of war versus just the physical injuries. And I think that his work is very important and powerful, not just for veterans, but like, look, Anthony Bourdain just killed himself. Kate Spade just killed herself. Yeah. Somebody's child in junior high just killed themselves. Somebody's high school kid just killed it, right? There is an epidemic of this going on. And one of the key ways to get through that is to talk about it and share it and open up. But nobody wants to do that, right? Nobody wants to open up and share this stuff because they think people, I'll look weak, or, it'll just give them another way to get at me or whatever. But, we need to do that for each other. We need to open up and be vulnerable and share, or else our lives are not worthwhile. And this generation has the most incredible technology to connect them that any generation has ever had, and yet they're the loneliest.
Yeah, what you just described is really crucial to talk about. We got probably the most anxiety and the most depression. What it feels like it. It feels like it. I wasn't alive 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago to know these things, but it really does feel like a very anxious and depressed at times world, especially with not being able to socialize well with people, being so reclusive to our devices, but at the same time, there is a little bit of darkness that shows up when people do choose to be vulnerable to people that are not really good at listening and showing care. And that's what's really scary for people is, I'm going to open up, and then nobody gives a crap, right? That's kind of what the thought is. But finding people that are willing to make space, that are willing to be confidential, that are willing to just be with your feelings and not coach you, and then just work with you on those feelings and just hear about them, and and then eventually build enough rapport to where it can be something that is trusted, that becomes trusted, and that you can work with. You're right, that's major. And look at what we have right now. Like you said, there's a lot of worry about I was just recently learning about Japan getting access to technology before the United States, smartphone technology, and becoming more reclusive, having more social anxiety, having less children, a declining fertility rate, all these types of things that are just crazy. And then and then population is, of course, increasing in other places of the world where fertility rates are still like 6 versus in developed nations they're under 2, and so the replacement fertility rate for a couple. So we don't even know if population is increasing or stabilizing after like 9 billion. We don't even know. And then is it going to decrease because people are having less kids, you know, etc. So it's a very strange human experiment that we live in, and it's really interesting that you are talking about communication, emotional credibility, emotional credibility. And I mean, those two things, like emotional credibility and communication, I mean, this is a formula for people to be real and raw and loving and caring. And it might just be like, you know, a big part of the formula for figuring out kind of what's going on across the world with some of the exponential technology conversation we were having earlier is how do we work together in in the world and prevent a socioeconomic speciation and so I'm really happy that we were able to sit down. I have a couple questions for you on the way out.
Okay.
What's the most beautiful thing in the world?
It's my little boy laying on my shoulder, falling asleep while I carry him around, you know, and the gratitude I feel for being safe and knowing that we've got some, you know, we've got food and shelter and water, and I can show him what's beautiful in the world versus like just trying to, you know, stay alive or something. And just I haven't ever felt a feeling like that ever, you know, as he just lays on my shoulder and his body starts to relax and his breathing starts to get regular and he just falls asleep right here. That's to me the most beautiful thing.
So well articulated. You made me feel like I was putting a child to sleep right here. Yeah. And you're right, in this world where we already have access to ubiquity and water and food and electricity, that way we have the time to contemplate our existence and not just be in the need for food and shelter and stuff.
Well, you know, there's definitely a benefit to hitting it later in life, because like if I had to, you know, I ran it with my rock band when I was 20, and if we would have gotten really big and I would have made all kinds of money, I probably would have like died early in, you know, bathtub or something. But, you know, this business is the first time that I've really had any kind of sustained ability to, you know, really take care of myself. And so I think I'm way more grateful than I might have been, you know. So that goes through my mind too, as I carry him around, you know.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing it. How about, do you think we're alone in the cosmos?
You know, I think there's a pretty convincing argument for both, you know. On the one hand, it seems ridiculous to think that we're, like, come on, like, there's practically infinity. Like, how could there not be other life? And even if that is true, given the constraints of the physical universe as we understand it, there may be no way we'll ever know, right? We will probably, I mean, because if the speed of light is the limit, how are we ever going to hang out with other cultures? You know what I mean? So that's
within our own galaxy.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
But other galaxies.
Yeah. I mean, even in our own galaxy, it's not easy. Yeah. Right. You know.
4.5 light years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Away for the first one.
And then, you know, on the other hand, I think that I could buy the supposition that it's just like it's a one-off, you know, and although I probably don't think that's if at the end of it, if I had to pick one, I probably would say, well, we're probably not alone because that just seems dumb. But I think we ought to treat it like we are. Because I don't think there's any place we're going. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's go to Mars. But there's no Van Allen belts protecting us from the radiation. There's no atmosphere, you know, right? Like, it's not like we're going to just, once we ruin this planet, we can just go to another planet, right? And I'll tell you what, cheetahs, they're very special.
Tell me why.
Well, and rhinos and mice, and you know what I mean?
Why?
Like,
Why those?
Well, because even if there is life on another planet, I don't think there's cheetahs. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's mice. I think
or
this
like
is
eagles or deep sea squids.
yeah.
And
Like
stuff
there's
like that,
really cool other stuff, but not this. You know.
Yeah. There's
this
so
is
many
unique.
Species. Yeah.
You know, like.
There could be some interesting things on. Like Enceladus or Europa, or
right, all kinds of
and stuff.
Yeah,
like, there seems to be cool stuff even in our solar system, but
well,
the sheer diversity here is something so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you found another exactly Earth-like planet with something sort of like humans and something sort of like every other animal we have, it wouldn't be this. Mm-hmm. You know, this is unique.
This is like God in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a religious guy, but I really like the religious concept of stewardship.
Yeah, stewardship.
That's like, come on, okay, God gave this to you. Do you think he's going to be happier if you trash it or if you take care of it?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Hello. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Come on, hello. yeah. Do you want the kids for tomorrow to inherit something great? Yeah. Okay, how about last question? Do you think we're in a computer simulation?
Ooh, definitely sometimes, man.
And what does that feel like for you when it's sometimes? What are the examples?
I'll tell you, this is so weird. I don't think I've ever told anybody this. When I was a little kid, I used to have these dreams that would almost make me sick to my stomach. It felt like there was a lot of pressure in not physical pressure in my brain, but like pressure in my mind. And it felt like the only way that I could figure out to describe it to myself was it was like something. You know, I didn't have computers at this point. Like, computers weren't a big part of everything yet. But it felt like something with a much higher bit rate was trying to download stuff to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And I just couldn't. I'm like a 14.4 and like a 56.6 is trying to talk to me, you know? And it made me physically sick to my stomach, and my brain just felt like it was going to it was just so pressured, and it was, and it felt like some alien intelligence was trying to communicate with me. And I had these dreams for a while, you know, and I don't have them anymore. And I, like I said, I don't think I've maybe told 2 other people in my life. And so, you know, like maybe we are, you know, and here's the bottom line, is like the way that
we definitely don't know what happens outside of the third dimension yet.
Yeah.
So there you go. This is these feelings of whatever's going on that feel like, whoa, I don't know what it is, but something's happening, and it's not right here. It's not.
Yeah. Well, and it's all getting processed in here anyway. So in a way, it's like what's out there, it almost doesn't matter. You know, it's like the whole experience is actually getting processed right here, you know, and here's
why is the outside impacting what's going on, whatever this it is in this exterior outside of this third dimension, whatever what else was going on off this rock and on the other stars and on the other galaxy. What's so interesting about this experiment orbiting this star, and how do they interact with us in ways that we don't know, like this example of you. And what was that was being downloaded to you?
Right? I don't know, man. I don't know, but I mean, I think there's a reason the Matrix resonated with everybody so hard. It was like, okay, there's something going on about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I think the not only Matrix resonated, but also a lot of the techniques in technology that were indicated and leveraged and used within that movie are now like, oh, we're about to go through that.
Yeah.
So we better get our shit together.
Yeah. Oh my dude. Oh my gosh. I mean, I
love it, John. This has been super duper fun.
Well, thank you for me too. Me too. I really
That's good to
appreciate
hear
the
that.
invitation to join you here.
Good, John. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
You're welcome.
This was a blast. We'll have some of your links in the bio.
Okay, cool.
And Executive Speaking Success, link in the bio. Check it out. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Huge thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. If you guys had a good time, definitely give us a subscribe, give us a comment below with your thoughts. Share the video with other people. Get talking about the things that we talked about. That's really important. Actually, the leadership at the buffet versus leadership on the empty dance floor. That's a good one. I remember that one. And definitely go and create with the content. Don't just watch, but go and make something with it, write about it, make a video about it, go and talk to other people about it, maybe start a business with it. You know how to go do that. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you guys want us to keep doing cool on-sites like we're doing right now at WITI, join us on Patreon. We need to continue supporting the studio, continue supporting the endeavor, going and highlighting more brilliant people around the world. So join us there. Thank you very much. Much love. Peace.